With the idea of building collaborative mobile robots that are capable of learning from humans in real time, Peer Robotics was created. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Builder Nation. For today's interview, we have Rishabh Agarwal, co-founder and CEO at Peer Robotics, the company allowing humans and machines interact to achieve solutions. So welcome, Rishabh. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks a lot, Elisa. Really looking forward to our conversation, and thanks for having us here. A little bit background about myself. So my dad, my brother, my entire family operates in the domain of manufacturing. I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering with specialization in robotics, did my master's in systems, again focusing on robotics, typically towards the direction of human-robot interaction. So the core field that I was initially focused on and I was doing my research in all those areas were how to make sure that robots can understand humans a bit better. So whether it's on the sensor side, whether it's on the actuator side, how we can do that. So yeah, that curiosity led me to kind of found Peer Robotics. And the idea there was still very simple, but related to both my family background and my own background, which is how we can make something that is simple enough for small and medium scale manufacturers to adopt. And that's how Peer Robotics came into life.
I wanted to congratulate you on the company because I know that you guys raised $2.3 million last year on this funding round. So if you can please share a little bit about that, how was the process like?
Early in our stage, we started working with some of the manufacturers, trying to understand their requirements and building solutions that can fit their requirements. And along that journey, we also met some phenomenal people, whether it's Connecticut Innovations, working with small manufacturers in Connecticut, and the other Kalari Capital, which is another fund based out of India. So we are an international company with people working from both India, US, and same thing with investors on both sides. We initially started our operations with Techstars. So Techstars gave us the pre-seed funding, and we were working with Stanley Black & Decker and Techstars at that program. So while doing that, we started working with Kalari Capital, and they really liked what we were building and saw the potential. So it was much easier for us to communicate. I would say as a company, we were very lucky to have these partners because everyone brings a different perspective and different specialization that is important for us as a company to grow.
So how was that process like in order to build a company in 2019?
If you think about it, Connecticut is one of the biggest manufacturing alley when it comes to aerospace. So a lot of companies are actually making in Connecticut. They have their manufacturing operations here. They have their kind of support systems here. So a lot of manufacturers are here, but they're typically also in the domain of small and medium scale. And that's why you don't see a lot of technology companies kind of being present at this moment. But what we see is a shift in the landscape where technology is going to become affordable and simple enough that people that are early on the manufacturing cycle or are operating small shops can also enable those technologies. I mean, we're already seeing what's happening with ChatGPT and all, AI becoming accessible to everyday person, and soon robotics is going to be the same. And that's why we chose Connecticut as our base of operations, because we saw a lot of our customers building from Connecticut, and we wanted to empower them while being in Connecticut. That was one of the reasons. And Yale is nearby, so a lot of talent around as well, so can't complain about that.
You built the company along with your co-founders 2019, and next year the pandemic hit. How was that process like? Did you have any challenges regarding the procurement process or the supply chain issues, something like that?
Early 2020, it was just three of us, like myself, my co-founders Tanya and Alok, and I still remember we took our first office space right before the lockdown. So like in March, right before lockdown, we ended up paying for our first office, and that's how we started our operations. And that time I was in India. We were doing most of our designing aspects in India. We were not in full-fledged production cycle back then, so we were not affected by the supply chain that much, but we were definitely affected by our whole design process. Like as an early team, we were not able to work from a single place. I ended up moving to office and staying there for 1 month so that we can work on things together and take things faster. That was an interesting period. But definitely as a young company, it took us a bit longer to go out of this process and start building our connections again, because practically we were just starting from zero after the lockdown opened. But it was good from the point of view that it gave us some time to inspect what we were doing, to redirect ourselves, to understand the customer requirement, and it also accelerated the adoption cycle. So it was kind of both good and bad at the same time, but yeah, we are here, so survive that.
I'm curious to ask, like, What kind of industries does Peer Robotics serve? You mentioned aerospace. Are there any others?
Where we see small manufacturers creating output, we try to build solutions around those industries. So aerospace, automotive, electronics, healthcare appliances, like these are industries that we target into. But you can think of our customer profile as a small manufacturer, typically anywhere between 50 employees to 200 employees, and having some form of operations which are assembly oriented. So they are having multiple parts, assembling or manufacturing multiple parts, and having people walking around in a dynamic scenario. And those are our ideal customer profile that we work along with and we support at this stage.
Are there any specific kind of companies that you enjoy working with the most?
Every industry has a different set of challenges and a different set of opportunities. So I can't say I will pick one in particular as a favorite one, but we definitely see that automotive and electrical areas are something that is booming and people are making them in US, right? So it's no longer that they are making in different parts of the world and bringing it here, but the components and the parts are being manufactured in the US, and that's one of the most growing areas. So that's something that definitely excites us at Peer Robotics.
I have to ask, you have a background in engineering. So being the founder and CEO, like how close are you with this team at the company? How close are you in your day-to-day with the engineers and their processes?
So right now, Alok, he leads the entire engineering side, and I technically work under him in one of the aspects, which is the hardware side. So we have a weird structure where although I look after the business side as well, but on the other side, I'm still part of the technology development team. Slowly getting out of it. It's a small team, it's 12 of us, and I think only 2 people are non-engineers.
I'm pretty sure that it's super hard being the CEO, co-founder, and you have to wear a lot of hats. And that's usually the talk I have with different founders in the industry. They are all over the place and every day is a new challenge.
I think that's the startup life, and uncertainty is the only thing that we are certain of. Like I was talking to some of my other founder friends and we were just talking about the same thing, that yeah, I think uncertainty is given. Like if it's not uncertain, then something is going wrong probably at this stage.
Okay, let's talk about next steps for the company. Is there anything you can share with us to our audience? Are you guys planning on expanding anytime soon or anything?
One of the big milestones that are happening for us is that we are going to be at our first big automation trade show. It's called ProMat. It will be in Chicago between 20th to 23rd March. And we are there with one of our partners, PeakLogix. So we've been working with PeakLogix, and our business model as a company is also that we work along with system integrators and solution providers that in turn are very enclosed with the ecosystem of manufacturers. So we can provide them a base solution, a base platform where they can customize or personalize depending on their customer requirement. So yeah, PeakLogix is one of our partners, and we are going to be there at their booth in ProMat 2023. So anyone who is listening, myself and Chris is our customer success manager, also based out of New Haven. Both of us would be there and would be happy to meet people around there. So excited for that.
That's going to be exciting. Thank you so much for sharing. And one of the last questions from your perspective, where do you think the future of the robotics industry is going?
This is an area that we are also constantly working on to understand and to prepare ourselves better for this. But the major challenge that robotics industry has right now are cost and complexity. Like if we look into any solutions that exist in the market, either they're too expensive or they're too complex to work along with. And the industry as a whole will go towards a direction where both these problems will be solved, but not by fixed automation, but by bringing human in the loop. So what we believe is that the best way of utilizing automation, just like any other technology, is not to isolate humans, but to learn from humans what they are very good at and do which the humans are not very good at. So that's what we expect the industry to go towards, and that's what we are trying to build and take a step in Peer Robotics to make sure that whatever we are building is not in isolation. It's from the perspective that how humans will work with us.
What would you say has been the biggest technical challenge that Peer Robotics has managed to solve?
I think definitely the transition from prototype to a product is a way bigger transition that we thought as a first-time founder, right? We were like, okay, we built the prototype, it's working nice, we can hit the road now. But as we transition to product, like we recently got our CE certification and all that, it was just such a complex journey. It's so multi-level that we don't just have to figure out our supply chain, but we also have to make sure that our product has multiple design perspective. We have to ensure that the parts that we are choosing are long-term perspective supported for our customers and their lifetimes are good. Different tests, different scenarios, and back and forth, back and forth. So I think that was a challenge that we took as a team that we were, I would say, not completely mentally prepared for, but we somehow managed. We learned through the process and we were able to build that system as well.
And last but not least, do you have any advice for future entrepreneurs, CEOs, or founders in the robotics industry?
It's an interesting field. It's going to be tough. Robotics in general is tougher than any siloed industry for sure. It's not just software, it's not just hardware. In robotics industry, you're doing all of them together, right? So it's going to be tough, and it's always good to have good mentors around that can support you. So one advice I would give is that I would not be here without the support of the ecosystem and mentors that enabled me to learn through my mistakes, that enabled me to understand from their perspective what mistakes I could make in future. And I think those two things were very critical, and the constant guidance and support from them was something that all the co-founders should constantly look for.
Being open to feedback and being humble whenever you receive it, I think that's the key to success.
Yeah, completely agree. Like without humility, the feedback won't matter.
Thank you so much for sharing that advice. Do you have any social media handles? Where can people find you or find Peer Robotics?
We are at peerrobotics.ai. We are also active on LinkedIn, same name. Apart from that, people can reach out to me very easily as well. I'm on LinkedIn, Rishabh Agarwal, again, Peer Robotics. That's mostly it.
Thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your experiences with us. And remember, guys, that you can also find more information, interesting articles, interesting interviews, just like this one with Rishabh, direct on our website, controlhub.com/builder-nation. We would love to hear from you. And once again, Rishabh, thank you so much for taking the time, for being here, for joining Builder Nation today.
Thanks a lot, Alyssa. Really good to be here and having that conversation. Appreciate the time.